I'm someone who doesn't look at my competition. I have full blinders. It's because I'm the expert and I don't want anybody's thoughts or opinions or views or their education to influence mine. I've been always very much driven by grit and by the fact that like you can't just wish for things to happen. You have to work for it. And that is just my MO. That's what drives me. I think a lot of people have this feeling of I'm gonna feel stupid or I'm gonna feel like I don't necessarily belong if I'm asking questions, but no, that's not the case at all. It is a superpower if you can just ask and you will never know without asking.
Welcome back to Creator Commerce. Today's guest is Julia Broom, a social media strategist and educator who's helped creators and celebrities master their online presence. She started out working one-on-one with her influencer clients, but quickly realized she wanted to do more than just help the top 1% of creators, so she decided to bring her expertise to the masses. Now through her programs, which have generated almost $1 million on Kajabi in just 2 short years, Julia teaches creators and social media managers how to build sustainable businesses. Let's get into it. Julia Broom, welcome to Creator Commerce.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
I'm so excited to chat with you. We always like to start off these conversations with the same question, so no pressure, but the question is, how do you describe what you do to someone who is not in your industry?
This is perfect. This is like what I would tell my grandma or my
Yes,
dad.
exactly.
Yeah, okay. So obviously, I'm a creator and I very much pride myself in sharing my expertise that I've learned over the last 7 or 8 years. So I basically teach creators and social media managers how to build their brands, how to build their businesses, how to expand beyond just a personal brand. So
I love that. And you labeled yourself as a creator.
Yeah, I did. I mean,
Why
that's
word?
It's a little interesting because I don't view myself as an influencer per se. I don't see myself, I see myself more as an educator. Obviously, there's tendencies for my audience to want me to go a little more influencer route, but I feel most valuable when I can share what I've learned and like really, really, really help my community. So I think a creator just, it gives me a little bit more flexibility, you know? I think that there's kind of a little bit of a taboo of influencer, just lifestyle-wise.
Totally.
You know?
And what draws you to like the education side of things?
I've always loved education, you know? Ever since I was little, I've just loved learning. I'm a research-driven person, like through and through. I don't know if you would look at me and immediately think that I'm like a statistics and like analytics girly.
What are you talking about? The glasses?
Yeah,
I'm like, yes,
true.
get in it.
That's true. But like, you know, it's like it's a little bit more of like that is like my place that I thrive.
Yeah.
And so I love that kind of stuff. And I just love being able to help other people. It's always just like been embedded in me, you know? So that's kind of why I feel like I'm more of that educational route.
Yeah, I love that. And let's talk a little bit about like your earlier career. You started out managing other people's social medias. Can you talk a little bit about like that early journey into starting your own thing?
Yeah, it's a really interesting one. Yeah. So obviously, when I went to college, like everybody, you know, you have a path in your mind that you think you're gonna go and that you think is like your full life plan. And very quickly after college, I realized that's very much not what I'm going to be doing. Yeah. And I wanted to be a registered dietitian, like basically a nutritionist.
No way.
And so, so I had done all of my registered dietitian internships and I had done literally everything, hospital work, like real, like one-on-ones. I had literally like mastered pretty much everything. And I was like, what could give me an edge, you know? And this was in the wild, wild west of social media and just podcasting in general. And I happened to listen to a podcast. It was actually Lauren Everett's Bostic's podcast.
Oh, yeah.
And this wellness influencer was on there and she was just very articulate. She was very like knowledgeable and I just really gravitated towards her. And I was like, you know, that could be cool. That could be a cool route of working and working as an intern for an influencer in a stage where that's not really something that a lot of people know about.
Yeah.
So I cold emailed her. Did not hear back. Literally for months, did not hear back. And then I just retried. I was like, hi, just checking. I just graduated. It was like the day of my graduation that I was like, I'm just gonna like on a whim see. And she reached back out to me. We met. Wow. That meeting kind of changed my life because I realized that there's so much growth and opportunity in the space. And I remember being at that meeting she was an influencer and I thought I was gonna be like an assistant, not a social media manager. But that was kind of where my career kind of catapulted into social media management, understanding the roles of a social media manager. And then from there, it was just word of mouth. You know, I started gaining celebrity clients, brands, businesses, all of that. And so yeah, that's kind of where it took off. But nowhere in a million years did I ever think that I would be sitting here as from social media manager to creator.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
that's a crazy,
doing it yourself.
crazy one too.
That's incredible. I love that story because we talk a lot about how entrepreneurs and creators and experts and whatever label you want to put on the people in this business, how they have to have grit. And
100%.
you have to have ambition that there is something to get done in this business that you want to accomplish. And so by just like cold emailing and finding yourself in that position, like what a cool entrepreneurial way to start.
Honestly, 100%. And for me, like when I look at my friends and I look at people our age, I think a lot of people have lost their grit and it can feel really defeating too because, you know, maybe the job interface is not as great or it's just maybe a little bit more draining now, but I think that I've been always very much driven by grit and by the fact that like you can't just wish for things to happen. You have to work for it. Yeah. And that is just my MO. That's what drives me. So
totally. It's what got you to here today.
For sure.
When you think about growing a business, like what did those early days of working and having clients and doing social media like teach you about building a business?
Oh my God, so much. There's just so much out there that's not necessarily like written in a handbook. Like, nobody's going to give it to you. You really have to go and dig it up for you, which is where my research background kind of came into play.
Yeah.
And I think that was what really, really helped me was I took everything that I didn't know and instead of thinking about it as a weakness, I was like, no, this is a strength. I can learn, I can lean into it and lean hard into it. And not every failure is a failure. It's, you know, you kind of like you're failing forward and you're trying to learn and grow. And so I kind of took everything that I didn't necessarily understand, like LLCs, you know, like even the smallest thing is like creating an LLC is overwhelming to a freelancer who has their own business who doesn't understand that, you know? And
never done it before.
Exactly. And like setting yourself up and really understanding the logistical business side of things because I'm someone, and I'm sure there are so many other people who are going to watch this that are just very creative, you know, we have creative mindsets. So kind of taking off your creative hat and having to go into that into a business hat is so overwhelming. Yeah. And I think that if you can do baby steps and piece by piece and just start to learn the things that you don't necessarily know, you know, it becomes a lot easier. But for me, a lot of the things that I didn't understand and that I learned as I went was obviously LLCs, obviously like the business parts of things, trademarking my name, all of that. But then also the work ethic part, you know, setting boundaries, for example, like that's a big part of your business too. So I think there are a lot of aspects that kind of come together and you are just in a huge and immense learning phase, you know?
Where did you feel like you learned the most? Like what avenues? Was it like, did you watch YouTube videos? Did you read books? Did you just listen to your clients and try to absorb all that knowledge? Like what was the format?
Yeah, I think that I kind of obviously went deep into like the research, like Google. I learned from TikTok. I learned from any creator that I would come across, you know? So I was lucky to be enough to be in rooms of influencers, creators, brands, businesses. And I always asked questions, you know? Like I think a lot of people have this feeling of I'm going to feel stupid or I'm going to feel like I don't necessarily belong if I'm asking questions. But no, that's not the case at all.
Yeah, it's a superpower.
It is a superpower if you can just ask and you will never know without asking. So I think I felt more comfortable leaning in and asking people for help and advice and just kind of accumulating all of these people's like knowledge. And I remember thinking the whole time, God, I wish there was someone that I could go to. God, I wish there was a course for this.
Yeah.
There was no course at the time that was doing what I needed. You know, there was no social media management course, how to be the person behind the influencer, you know?
Yeah. Do most of them have that as well? Like team members behind?
Oh, for sure. I like to call myself the influencer behind the influencer.
I love that.
I was the voice. I was the person that people were talking to in their DMs. It would just, you would never know it. Yeah. So, you know, the influencer is one person and I basically kind of melded myself to that person. And when I first started out, again, it was the wild, wild west, so it really wasn't that common. Like we would go to brand events and I was the only social media manager following her around, you know, like taking content, understanding like how to edit it very quickly, get it out real time. But that wasn't as common. And I remember people being like, wait, do you do this full time? Like, is this a thing that you do? And I was like, yes, I do. And so I think it started to take off and like domino effect once influencers realized like, their time is better spent on their business and in their business rather than, editing and taking photos and organizing photos. So
Totally. Like more of the admin kind of like things that prop up the content on the back end.
Totally.
How did you know when you were ready to shift from being the influencer of the influencer to being your own creator?
I really wasn't, there wasn't like oh my God, I'm ready right now. So for me, I'm very much comfortable being behind the scenes. And I think this is something that a lot of people can relate to, is the thought of being on camera for someone who's camera shy or just intrinsically camera shy. It makes you sweat and uncomfortable just thinking about it. And that was me. That was me. I was so comfortable just behind my little phone or behind my little camera, and never in a million years did I have the intention or thought or want to be on the other side. I had deep respect for it, but I just didn't want to. So there wasn't necessarily that aha moment. But after about 6 or 7 years of being in the influencer management space, I had pretty much said yes to everything. I did web development, web design, brand building. I did production. I was doing kind of everything, and there was not an opportunity that arose that I didn't say yes to, because there was always room for growth and always room for improvement. So I think for me, in my mind, the one thing that I hadn't done was be a creator and try that and kind of take that and all of the knowledge that I had already accumulated and made it my own. So I had that thought around the 6 or 7 year mark, and I moved to New York for a job opportunity, and it was a really big job opportunity that kind of ended up being a complete flop.
No way.
Yes. So I went to this job opportunity thinking that it was kind of going to break me away from being a social media manager, and I was going to have equity in a company, and I was going to build a company without having to be the face of it. But that was the kind of thought behind it. And so I uprooted my life to go to New York because I was working with 2 influencers, and it was just a really exciting opportunity. And obviously I was really excited about the opportunity in general. And then when I got there, the day after, or very closely after, it kind of went south, and it was like, listen, we're not going to do it like this. We actually are just going to have you be a social media manager.
Oh my God.
And so I think it took me from feeling excited, I had broken free, to, this is a completely different trajectory now. And so I had to very quickly mentally shift, because I had uprooted my life, and it was just a weird time. And at the time I was 25 or 26, maybe 26. And I just remember being I've hitched my bandwagon to all of these influencers. I've made them tens of hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars. I'm giving them 6 to 7 figure and 8 figure businesses, and behind it is me. I'm a one-woman show. So I think I reached a point where that was almost my impetus to it. And then when I got home, it was a little bit of a reality check that my life was kind of puppeteered by the people who were above me or people who I worked for. And I was like, it's not the best feeling,
Totally.
I've built so many brands and so many businesses, and I have nothing to show for it other than salary and paycheck, and a great one at that. But at what point do you decide that you are more than that? At what point do you step into your business? And I think that was a question I kept asking myself. And then I started going on TikTok a lot more and seeing these social media managers give horrid advice. And this is where it really got me. This is the straw that broke the camel's back, because I was listening to these social media managers just give the most heinous and just awful advice. And I'm just wanting to pull my hair out listening to this. And I'm like, if someone's following this advice, they're going to not only burn out, but fail so miserably. And it's just not right. Nothing in me felt like it was right. And so I think that kind of lit a fire that I wasn't expecting. And I remember being well, nobody's going to create my content for me. I have to create it for myself. And so that was my aha moment. And so in my dark apartment in a weird state of my life, I put my phone up and started creating content. And my mindset was, even if I could just help one person, because I had gone from, helping basically the 1%ers to helping the masses in my mind, I've already helped the people who could afford me, quote unquote. And that was great. And I think that was a huge privilege, and it really, really taught me so much. but what if I could help the masses? What if I could help small business owners? What if I could help smaller creators, micro creators, influencers? Like, it was that kind of got me to show up. And the thought of helping them really made me feel like this was worth trying, you know?
100%. Well, we talk a lot about at Kajabi this idea of being an expert in something. And this is why I asked the question about, you identify as a creator and not an influencer or an entrepreneur or an expert, because we like really believe in this concept of knowledge-based businesses exist because you have an expertise that you have tried and true, and you have kind of been through so much with these celebrities and influencers that you've worked for. You've gained all this expertise. To your point, you didn't have anything to show for it externally. You didn't own any of the like audiences that you had been generating, but you had this like knowledge to transfer and share.
Exactly.
And I think that's like a really powerful moment to recognize your expertise. And I feel like that aha kind of probably came at like there's like multiple points in your story, right? Where it's like you didn't have this opportunity you thought you would have. And then on top of that, you see non-experts in a space acting like they were experts.
Right.
And it motivates you to want to actually package that up and say like, hey, there's a better way to do this. And I might have an answer that you were looking for.
Exactly. I think that's exactly right of the word package it and simplify it and make people feel like they can do it too.
Totally.
That was for sure what drove me at first. And I mean, I definitely consider myself an expert. And when I look back on my story, a lot of people are like, well, do you regret not trying this before? Because obviously I'm newer to the space. It's been 2 years that I've been, fully doing this, but I started just on TikTok for the full year, and then I started to integrate Instagram. So a lot of people will ask me, well, Julia, do you regret not, showing up before that? And I think no, because the timing is everything. I learned all my expertise. Like, I think if I had shown up, I would have shown up with imposter syndrome, or I would have shown up maybe as a social media manager who was talking, gibberish.
Giving bad advice because they'd never done the thing. Totally.
Exactly. So I think that it all really, really makes sense. Like, I tell a lot of people timing is everything in this. And I think, when you trust yourself fully with the advice you're giving out, the energy just speaks volumes.
Yeah, totally. Some of the best creators that we see on the platform are people who have done the thing for many, many years before teaching the thing.
100%.
Like we have, people who are like, we're executives or we're in certain jobs, and then now their whole mission is to go empower people to go do that. And it sounds like that's exactly kind of the trajectory that you've had.
100%. And I think that, I love romanticizing the fact that of like, you are just learning your craft. You're never a full expert. Obviously, like I love the word expert, and I do consider myself a social media expert. But something I tell my audience too, and I was actually talking to a few people in my community about this yesterday. They're like, I would love to start a digital product. Like, I would love to create on Kajabi, but I don't consider myself an expert. And I think what you guys have that a lot of people don't is this space where you don't necessarily need to be an expert. You just have to have a form of influencer currency or creator currency, like something to offer. And like, for example, I think the special thing about Kajabi is obviously it's an amazing platform for experts. But what if you're a mom who wants to just start a huge community and, like share things like that, or a newsletter? Like, that's what I like about you guys too, is that there's a lot more room to grow and like a lot of like wiggle room there that I think, yes, it's an amazing place for experts, but I don't want to discourage anyone who's not an expert, because there is a lot of room to scale and grow a business.
Well, it's like you have to define what these words mean. Right? And like to your point, some people have preconceived notions of like, oh, well, I haven't done this thing long enough, or I'm not skilled enough, or I'm not the best in order to consider myself that. But it's like that transfer of knowledge that can impact someone. Like, that's what makes you an expert in a specific field.
Exactly.
Doesn't necessarily mean that you are the most, the best at that thing.
100%.
But yeah, I find that really fascinating. What do you think about the idea of like competition on Instagram and TikTok, and like the idea around like gatekeeping? Like, you were talking about how people were giving bad advice.
Horrible.
But like, what's your approach to content when you think about like, I'm giving all this away for free versus what I put behind a paywall?
Yeah.
And then how that interacts with the competition of people doing this also on social?
I guess I'll preface with, I think a lot of people might have the mindset of, well, why would I buy a course, or why would I want to learn from you, or why would I want to learn from anybody behind a paywall when I can learn so much for free online? And that's fair. I totally think that's fair. But I think the question can also be posed for like, why would someone buy a black t-shirt from a high-end luxury brand or versus a black t-shirt from a lower, a Target, CVS, whatever it is? And I think that the underlying answer is quality, and you're getting quality, and you know that you are getting quality. Like, it is quality because it's trusted and earned, rather than something that, might be fine, but not the best, or not necessarily as valuable as you could. It might not last as long, like your t-shirt that you get somewhere else for $12 might not last as long as, the t-shirt that you get for $500. Like, who knows? So I think for me, it's just a thing of, okay, baseline is that you're getting quality. But I think competition-wise, when you think about competition, first of all, I'm someone who doesn't look at my competition. There are so many times where I'm scrolling, and if I see anyone doing something similar, I scroll right past them.
Wow.
Do not look.
A lot of willpower.
I have full blinders.
Yeah.
And it is something that's like trained. Like, I've trained myself to not look.
Yeah.
And
why
it's
is that?
It's because I'm the expert.
Yeah.
And I don't want anybody's thoughts or opinions or views or their education to influence mine.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's like, if I'm going to show up and say something, it's got to be my words.
Yeah.
I cannot regurgitate someone else's.
Because it's an experience that you've learned
Exactly.
and you've lived.
It's my experience, or it's factual. Like, a lot of my stuff, because I am research-based, I have an entire day in my calendar where I just dedicate to research and researching trends and education and really honing in on that. And I don't trust that someone else is doing that. Yeah. So I don't want to look at their content. I don't want to compete with them. I don't think there is a competition in my mind. I'm like, totally. I'm like, the right people will find me and the right people will understand. And what that has caused actually for me, because I do have blinders on and I'm not looking at other people, is I have a domino effect of people copying me. And I have to get sent, people's Instagrams, people from my community are like, this person is copying you and that person is copying you. And I heard this from you first. And it's like, that is exactly why, if you want to kind of be the best and be the top at what you do, you don't want to look at other people's stuff, because you want your audience to know that that's you first and they're copying, So totally. I think it can get really convoluted really fast if you don't put those boundaries in place, and if you don't look and say, you know what, it's not worth looking at my competition. Yeah. And then I think also for me, to answer the last thing that you said of like, what's free versus what's paid. So for me, I made that so clear before I started. And the thing I love about this is that when I started my TikTok, I was kind of in my very early growth phases, and I was just leaning in and listening to my community. And a lot of people would message me being like, do you have a course? How do I learn more from you? Like, what can you share that like you're not sharing on here? Like, can I have one-on-ones with you? All of these things. And I think that made me realize, that would be a good opportunity for me. Like, I'd love to teach more people. And so early on, I sat down and I was like, here are the things that are worth sharing in a course that are maybe longer, more intricate, more strategic, like a lot more like into the weeds of things, rather than social media where it's like a lot shorter form, digestible things that aren't going to necessarily overwhelm, but are really going to help people. Totally. So I think I made those things that were free versus not free very, very clear starting at the very early stages of my career. But I think you can do it at any point, you know, like you can decide, even if people are sharing, all of this education out there for free, you can still put your own unique spin on it. Like you can still have your own unique approach.
Yeah. Well, I think it kind of goes back to your like t-shirt analogy too, is that like, not only are you buying into something for potentially the quality, but also for the brand that's associated with it. And I think if we think of knowledge-based entrepreneurs and creators as personal brands as well, it's really important, because people are purchasing because of the expertise that you bring to the table, because of the background of the people that you worked with, because of the experiences that you have, the research that you do. Like, they want to be a part of that, which is why they would maybe buy from you versus others. I also find it really interesting the way that you talked about how you broke down free versus paid content. Like, one, the signal that you got from your audience immediately, that's incredible because that's not always the case, right? Like people aren't banging down doors saying, let me pay you money.
Right.
So that's cool that you
It's
obviously
true.
had so much value to offer that this
Yeah.
was a very early signal. But I've never heard someone describe it as the breakdown of like, what should I package for free versus what should I package for paid
Yes.
based on the type of content. That's a really interesting approach to it.
Yeah, for me, I think that, and I think for a lot of creators, they can benefit from that because then it gives you like full creative control, and you're not gatekeeping per se, but like there are things that should be gatekept for the fact that they're too intricate to go into.
Yeah.
You know,
it's
like
more like ascending,
exactly,
right?
exactly,
Versus gatekeeping.
Totally. And like you said, like for the people who are working on their personal brands and evolving their personal brands into like legacy brands where they are more than just their social media presence, you know, that's a home that I want to give them. You know, like I want them to feel welcome in my space for them to do that. And I think a lot of the time it gets really messy on social media if you're just learning from social media because there's, you know, someone might say one thing, I might say another, and then you're confused.
Yeah.
So I think that's another luxury, I guess, of going into a more paid space.
Yeah,
you know,
a contained space.
exactly.
Yeah. That's so interesting. I feel like with the way that you've structured it, it's very clear that you were a social media manager before because the way that you talk about paid versus like free content, it's almost like you created like content pillars.
Totally.
And then whatever content pillar is free, you create that type of content.
For
whatever
sure.
content pillar is paid, you create that type of
You're
product.
speaking my language.
Yeah, but like
You
that's
are.
that's a really interesting way to package. And then for you as the creator, becomes really easy to be like, oh, well, this falls under that pillar, therefore it's free.
I am so strong. I like, this is the one thing that I won't let anyone get past is that you have to have your content pillars. Like they are your roadmap.
Yeah.
Without them, you're just going to either niche down too hard, or you're gonna feel lost. You're gonna feel like it's a mess, a chaotic mess, and you're really not gonna know what direction you're going in. So I think your
Or you're not
content
going to be
pillars,
able to read the signal of what works and what doesn't because you're
Exactly.
changing every 5 seconds.
You're changing. So you have your content pillars to really structure, and strategy is like my thing. It's my MO. It's behind everything that I do is strategic. And I think that, you know, when you're operating like that, it becomes cleaner too, and it becomes cleaner for your audience. It's just everything to me is about their experience.
Yeah.
You know, like you want them to have like a perfect seamless customer journey, whether they land on your Instagram or whether they land on your Kajabi checkout page. Like you want them to have that like easy, enjoyable, seamless experience. And that's a part of the customer journey, you know? And that is where they've kind of feel like, okay, you know, she's made it easy she's put everything out on a silver platter. Like, why not, you know? And it makes it a lot easier for them to see the benefits.
Totally. Okay, we've talked a lot about the strategy.
Yeah.
Give me the like tactical breakdown of the Julia Broom ecosystem. Like, what are your products that you sell?
Yes.
Are they courses? Are they memberships? Are they communities? What's the difference between those things to you? What do they teach? Like, give me a lay of the land of the products that you sell.
Okay, let me give you the lay of the land. First of all, I'll start with my Kajabi products. So I have 2 courses, and I have a content creator course.
Okay.
And that's for creators who are trying to build their brands, their influence, their social media space. And then I have a social media management course, which is my baby course that like I started. That was my first ever course, and I basically funnel social media managers in there. I teach them all of the behind the scenes for business. I teach them how to run their companies, what the pros and cons are of being a social media manager, or if they're freelance, if they're in an agency. I teach them all the things. So I have those 2 courses in Kajabi. Obviously, in Kajabi, I have a community as well. And then outside of Kajabi, I have a social media planner. So I have a digital planner, which is called Workhorse app. And that is kind of like my also baby because it's something that I would have died for back in the day. So that is something that I have digitally, and that also creates a space for like a network essentially for creators and creatives to match and meet and have job opportunities. It's kind of like an all-in-one exclusive app.
Cool.
And then
is it almost like a like matchmaking across?
It is.
Okay.
It is. Like it's
like a
basically
dating app for social media
managers. A dating app for social media managers and creatives. So like if you're someone who's like, you know, if you're a creator and you're like, I need to hire someone, a social media manager, or I need a strategy session with a social media manager, or I need someone to be on set with me. It's immediate. Like, and those are the people who I have trained in my course.
Yeah.
So they're hiring these people who have learned from me.
Interesting.
And then, so that's kind of like an all-in-one app, and there's so much coming to that app. It's insane. And then I also have a physical version of the planner. So I have a social media planner, and then I also have an Instagram subscription service. Lots of things.
Wow. Okay.
Lots of things.
What's the like breakdown of revenue if you had to like, if you want to do percentages or anything?
So, I don't typically share revenue, but I came into this podcast knowing that I wanted to share revenue because I think that it's something that should be spoken about.
Totally.
And I think also like I'm a huge believer in transparency and like money literacy. So a bulk of, I've made almost $1 million from Kajabi.
Pause. Incredible.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
I'm likely on track to make my first $1 million this year on Kajabi alone.
Wow. So just with your course, the
Just
course
with
in
my
the community?
2 courses. Yeah. Just with my 2 courses in the community.
That's incredible. Did you
and
ever
I
think
have
that was
no
going to be?
paid ads, no team.
It's all through
It's
organic
me
content.
and organic content.
Wow.
Some stories that I've posted.
Did you ever think that would be possible?
No.
Through digital products?
No.
Like, okay, side question, because now I'm just curious.
Yeah.
We can get back to the revenue pie chart, but when you first thought about launching digital products, like were you thinking, oh, this will be like a side
For sure.
like income or
I knew I was going to pour my heart and soul into it.
Of
And I
course.
still do. I'm constantly adding more things. I think that's the thing. Is like it's such a fun thing because I've launched fast and just adjusted along the way.
Yeah.
And those are all my businesses are my babies,
Yeah.
and I think that it's a labor of love.
Totally.
In every single one and every single capacity too. But because I'm so close to everybody in the community and I'm listening all the time, I'm constantly adding things and I'm constantly listening to people and what they want, new modules, live trainings, all of the stuff for free. So like that's the other thing. I did not operate. The reason why I can say wholeheartedly I did not think this would be like $1 million company or a business is because I don't operate off of like, is this gonna make me the most money?
Yeah.
It's for me, it's like, is this a passion of mine? Can I pour my like heart and soul and energy into this? Am I gonna feel good about this?
Yeah.
You know? And
you're going to change someone's life.
100%, because I personally believe like wherever you put your passion, if you are placing your passion so intentionally, the money will flow. You know, like where your passion goes, money flows. That's how I feel. So, and that's something my dad taught me. You know, he was like, do not chase money. You'll be chasing the rest of your life.
Yeah.
So like, you want money? No, that's not the way to go. You should start by what can you yap about forever? You know, like what is something that you can bring to the table that others don't? What can you put, your energy into that might make more money and more revenue later on? But like, I started with the notion of like, if this could help someone, that would be amazing. Yeah. And then when I started getting people being like, I've gained 10,000 followers, or I've gained my dream clients, like, or I was able to secure a brand deal, like my dream brand deal. And those were the messages and the moments where I was like, wait, what? Like
the transformation.
It's really insane. It's like bone chilling insane. Yeah. And when you've worked with influencers and celebrities and all of those people who've kind of that's fallen into their lap, it's not necessarily as hard or as much of an uphill battle for those people. When you get to kind of like flip the script and work with more of the smaller businesses or smaller influencers or whatever, any creators who don't necessarily have that massive team or massive influence embedded, and you get to see their growth, that means more than a salary. That means more than $1 million to me,
Totally.
So
it fills your cup.
It does. It really fills my cup.
It's really cool, the like juxtaposition between what you've done with working with celebrities and influencers to then now serving that community and feeling like you can give back in that way. And I love, you said this earlier, and I don't know if you noticed that you did, but you said, these are the things that I would have died for when I had these clients. I think that's probably a direct correlation to your success because of the fact that, one, you have expertise in this, but two, you're building for essentially yourself 5 years ago.
100%. And I remember when I was a social media manager in the growing phases, I was just like, these apps or these like tools that I'm using, anything tech-wise, they're built by someone in tech. They're not built by someone who's a social media manager or who has that social media expertise. Like, and it was very clear to me, like I've used so many tools and apps and things like that. And so I think a lot of it is definitely driven by me taking my business owner hat off and just being a consumer and being a customer, honestly, more so a customer. Because I am a customer. I use my stuff. I use my strategies. Everything that I teach is something that I use. Like I practice what I preach. There are times where I go into the course and I open up my hook bank to find my next hook.
I love it.
Or I like open it up when I'm like feeling a little brain dead and I'm like, oh, I have a bunch of content ideas that are just laid out for everybody.
Yeah.
So like I'm a customer of my own product. And like I don't know how many people can say that, but I definitely like wholeheartedly feel like that's a reason that it's been so successful is because I see holes before people tell me that there's holes. You know, like I see opportunities of potential and growth before anybody has to tell me because I'm using it. Like I'm a consumer, a customer way before I consider myself a business owner. So I think that's the nice part, you know?
Totally.
And there's no ego involved either. You know, like I'm not sitting here being like, I have the best product ever. I have an amazing product that's only getting better every single year.
Probably because of the things that you realize you don't have and therefore you have to build it.
Exactly.
I love that. What is your proudest milestone outside of the revenue? $1 million is incredible, but outside of that, what do you think is the proudest milestone that you've kind of reached as a creator educator?
Yeah, I think that a big milestone for me is feeling like I can call myself a creator without feeling any sort of like awkwardness or like a tendency to feel like maybe I'm not that, you know. So I think like saying the words I'm a creator out loud is a big milestone for me. Not something that I would necessarily have thought I would ever be saying out loud, you know, 7 years ago. So I think that like something I like to talk about with people in my community is like you really have to take up the space that you feel like you deserve. And until you start calling yourself these things, like if you are someone who wants to be a creator, but you are not treating it as your full-time job and you are not showing up and saying, I am a creator, who's going to take you seriously?
Totally.
You know, like you don't even take yourself seriously. So like who is going to take you seriously? And I think that is a big milestone because it's been 2 years and I feel like, I've earned the right to call myself a creator, you know?
Absolutely
like
have.
I've grown from basically zero followers for sure on TikTok. And I started with like 2,900 followers on Instagram of my friends and family, you know? And from there, I've grown to over 450,000 followers with no paid anything, like nothing. So I think that like, it's a slow growth, but you can do it. And I think, you know, that's a big milestone as well.
But also 400 to 450,000 followers and $1 million business only growing.
Oh, for sure.
Like that's incredible.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like only gonna explode from here.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
Yeah.
So good. Okay, so I'd love to get a little bit more into some of the nitty gritty. We talked a lot about like your business structure and how it's set up. How did you go about shifting from the like more one-to-one to one-to-many business model? Like how was that for you from a like mentally, how did you do that? And then actually how did you execute against doing that, going from like, I guess, client-based to serving the masses?
I think it starts with you treating yourself as a client, you know? Like I think that you can very quickly lose a flow and lose kind of like your routine, especially if you're going from a freelancer who has like a very specific way of doing things to, you know, being your own boss and like having that happen overnight. Obviously, I do want to preface, it's not something that actually happened overnight. It was something that I know a lot of people will give the advice, just quit your job and start, you know? And I think that's just not the most grounded advice in my opinion and in my eyes. And I understand the sentiment behind that is like, quit and you know, take the leap and do for you. But I think that there's something to be said about making sure that you have a safety net and making sure that you've saved your money enough in case, because there is the what if, you know, always as a business owner. And I am the most driven, like hardcore person that I know, but I still was thinking, well, you know, I should have a pot just in case. So I think once I started to create and show up online, it wasn't the day that I quit my job. It was, okay, I'm going to make space for this. And then I'm going to see how far I can take this and how much I can grow. And so it kind of happened simultaneously. And once I got to a point where I felt like I was showing up every single day and that it was more worth it for me to spend my time and energy on my own thing versus my client's thing, that was when I gave my week's notice. I gave them all the things they needed to do. And then I really like flipped the switch onto me. And in that time period, like it was a good probably 5 or 6 months. I remember this was last year, by the way. So I started taking my Instagram seriously in February of last year, so February of 2024. And that was when I started growing from scratch. And I remember it kind of like snowballed where I was gaining a good amount of followers right off the bat. It was like 3 months and I maybe gained like 10 or 15,000 followers, and they were engaged, hyper engaged community. And I was, I was also hyper engaged. I was like, you're here, I'm here, so I'm gonna give you my time. And so I remember feeling like, okay, I'm just gonna start treating myself as if I'm my own client and building out my feed, building out my brand. Everything that I teach in the content creator course is something that I literally did for myself. Like I have my brand book, I have my content strategy. Like I did every single one of those because I think that you need to have that, guideline and that blueprint for yourself. And so I think that it was a natural but also very unnatural feeling of, okay, I'm done. Like I'm on my own now. And despite the fact that so many people around me told me not to do it, not to go out on my own, a bunch of people.
Why?
A lot of people had the thought that, you're in a really comfortable position with how much money you're making from influencers. It's really stable. The opportunities are endless. Why would you take that risk of, potentially losing all of that, getting replaced? There was a lot of fear around me. No longer though. Any of those people are not in my life anymore.
Yeah, I'm sure.
That's what happens. That's what you learn in this space. It's like when you want to be the one to take the leap, like you can be the most supportive person to your friends or your family or whoever is going to do it for them, but they might not do that for you in return. And it is a really eye-opening experience when you are the person who's like gearing up to leave your job or quit your job or take the leap or do something that makes, people uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And you really quickly learn who is fully on your team and who's not.
Yeah,
so I had a lot of loud noises and a lot of people in my ear telling me, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. And I fought against it and I did. And I think the day that I did, I was like very much like driven by the fact that they told me not to.
Yeah.
And I was
motivates
like,
you.
my favorite thing of all time is being underestimated. Yeah. I'm like, I want you to underestimate me.
I will show you.
Please underestimate me. As a little blonde girl, I'm like, please underestimate me. Let me show you different. Let me show you that you're wrong. And I think it gives me an opportunity to like prove myself.
Yeah.
Not that I want to prove myself to other people, just like almost for me too.
Yeah,
like
totally.
it's rewarding. I'm like,
when you're a solo
underestimating me.
entrepreneur too, you don't have that experience
Right.
as often. So getting motivation and like other factors as you do when you like work in a corporate environment where there's your peers and your boss and there's just like other elements. So it probably helps motivate that.
It definitely did. And so when I quit and the day that I was like free, I guess, I was like, oh, I'm going all in and you think that it's, crazy. Let me show you crazy. And I just outworked and outworked pretty much everyone. And I think for me, that started with a really strong work ethic. And like I said, like I've been saying on repeat, you have to treat yourself like a client because if you don't, there's no boss being like, you're missing your deadline.
Yeah.
There's no boss being like, you have to post that content. Why didn't that go live? There's no one who's gonna email you and give you a slap on your wrist if you didn't do something. And those are the things where you have to realize like, you have to be that role for yourself. Like you have to understand like, you are the driving force. No one's going to show up for you. Yeah. You have to show up for yourself, especially like in the very literal sense as a creator. It's like it's different to be a boss at a business where you're not necessarily on camera all day, but like showing up on camera all day is a completely different ballgame. And so we're talking about like really have to mentally be like, okay, well, every single day, I'm content batching, or every single day at this hour, I have, time to edit. And so my Google Calendar would scare you.
Do you like manage your like time that way?
Yeah, okay. I do. I have like pretty crazy. That's actually something that's coming to the course next year.
Like a time
doing
management?
A full time management for creators.
Ooh, that's interesting.
Yeah, so full time management for creators, and I'm giving them like a full system, full content batching system, all of that.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, it's something that I think a lot of people have a hard time doing because, maybe they wake up and they're like, what am I posting today? What am I doing? And that can't happen because you're going to feel like you're under a fire drill every single time. Your cortisol levels are going to go insane. You're going to feel so stressed and messy. And that's where burnout happens. That's where, where your growth kind of becomes stagnant, because if you don't know when you're going to show up and how you're going to show up, like your audience is going to feel that.
Yeah,
they just are, you
100%.
know, there's going to be repercussions in ways that you don't necessarily see or foresee, you know?
Yeah, totally. Well, let's go back to when you were launching your course,
Yeah.
or like when you had gotten all these requests of like, how do I learn more, whatever. I want to like dive into your content.
Yeah.
You joined Kajabi.
Yes.
You're opening up the digital product creation wizard, as we call it, very techie. Where did you start? Like, how did you know what to do to build a course, to build a program? Like, did you start with the content? Did you start with the outline? Like, talk me through that.
Okay, so this is exciting because, I was head deep into my comment section. And that is ultimately what inspired me. Like I said, it really wasn't about like, ooh, I could make money. It's like, ooh, I could really help people. So I was really reading the comments of like, could you go deeper into this? Can you talk about this? Can you talk about that? And I'm like, I can't talk about that. I'm cut off after, I think at the time it was like a minute or 3 minutes on TikTok. So I was like, I need more time. And YouTube was in the back of my mind. But at the end of the day, like in having a course and having a place where people could really learn in such a meaningful and intentional way, that felt a little bit more special and more on brand for me. Because for me, like the way I started was understanding, okay, if I'm starting from scratch, or if I'm someone who's kind of coming into a course, how do I not overwhelm them? How do I give it to them in bite-sized like modules where it feels like you're very seamlessly kind of like following a roadmap, you know, and you're really easily like understanding, okay, like I'm taking what I learned from this module and I'm applying it into this module. And so that was kind of my first step of like, what would I even teach, you know? And so I'm a pen to paper girl, so I wrote everything down pen to paper.
Really?
Yes, literally everything, like scribbling, trying to figure out like what would be the right thing, what would be the right move. And then from there, like my research brain went into research mode. And that is, I think, the best part of this is that I did so much research of like what platform and what would be the most beneficial. And because I am so research heavy, I like did a ton of, back end experimenting. I did the trial and I was like, no, Kajabi clearly stood out to me as like one of the most easy, seamless, just like feeling like very intuitive for me, but also like in the headspace of, okay, well, what would be intuitive for my customer too?
Yeah, the
Because like I said,
experience.
like it's really about customer journey and customer experience. So like what would be the most beneficial for both of us? And it was a very easy, like an almost immediate Kajabi, you know? And that is where I kind of was like, okay, I have my starting point. So once I had that and I understood kind of like my value that I'm going to bring to the table, which is something I like to call creator currency, like what am I bringing to the table that, people aren't able to get from me from just a TikTok or from just an Instagram. And once I had that kind of outlined, I started to really think about, okay, this isn't going to be shot on my iPhone, and it's not going to be something like just that they could get somewhere else. So just like I said, going back to the analogy of a luxury brand versus, maybe a store brand, like whatever, it felt like, how can I make it higher quality? And so I hired a production team. I hired real audio. Like I had an audio guy come and set me up, and I made sure that the lighting was amazing. I made sure that the cameras were crisp. Like everything had to kind of be in play for me to feel confident selling it.
Yeah.
Obviously, everyone has their own experiences, but if I was going to put my name on it, like my brand, my name, my reputation, I wanted it to feel like a different experience,
elevated.
Exactly. So I didn't want people to just go into my Kajabi and feel like they're watching YouTube. I wanted it to feel like they're on Kajabi watching something that is educational, like a masterclass,
That's
essentially.
tailored to them.
Exactly. So, I was definitely thoughtful about that. And something I love is that I never scripted anything out. Everything was, even though I had very strong intention points and bullet points of what I wanted to say in each module, I didn't script anything because I can typically do better without a script. Like I just need to understand like what I'm teaching in order to teach it,
Wow.
And a lot of it comes from I pulled deep within of like my experience and how I want to say certain things. And of course, like I wasn't seamless. I had to do a bunch of different takes, and I was like, let me say this differently, because that's another thing about being a creator or just allowing yourself to show up as an expert is that you're not going to show up perfectly ever. It's just not an option. So how can you just like show up as the best version of yourself and allow yourself to kind of mess up and be fine with it, you know? And I think once I realized like it's not that deep, let me just get through it and then I can get through it again, you know? And again and again. And
you
so
can iterate too.
Exactly.
Like you can build on top, you can take down,
exactly.
It's your business.
And something that I did was I very purposefully hired a all-woman production company.
Cool.
And I remember being like, and I had worked with her once before. And I remember being like, hey, I'm gonna ask you throughout if the things that I'm saying are making sense to you. Since you have no social media background and since you are also in real time learning, I wanna know if what I'm saying is making sense to someone who has zero knowledge on this whatsoever, you know? And once she was like, she was really into it. She was like giving me the go ahead. She was being like, I kind of lost you at this point, you know? And so that was really helpful for me to be like, I'm basically speaking to someone who is my ideal following, my ideal audience of like, you know, you might not know this, so let me teach it in a way that it's simplified for everybody. I don't want anybody to enter my course and be like, wait, what's happening? Like, like this is way too advanced for me, you know? There are definitely sections where it gets very advanced and the modules that I'm releasing next year are even more advanced. Cool. But I think that there's something for everybody in that. And so, yeah, I mean, once you realize who you're speaking to and once you kind of understand what the points you want to get across, there's so much flexibility, there's so much fun with it. And I think like letting yourself have fun with it, because again, you don't want someone to be in your course feeling like they're being lectured or at school. Totally. That was another thing for me. It's like, I don't want someone here being like, oh my God, is this module almost done? You know, like I really wanted people to like want to take notes and be excited about it. And I put like my own spin on it of like pop-ups and storytelling pop-ups and just like visual aids and, you know, digital downloads to kind of like supplement what I was talking about. So these are all things that I would think about if I was watching this, like would I want to watch this or would I want to skip? And if the answer was skip, then I needed to fix it. Like I needed to figure out like what was gonna make people want to stay and want to learn. And you know, I think when you can like a little bit like romanticize learning, it helps. It helps the process for sure.
I mean, it goes back to what you said earlier about being your own student and wanting to learn from the things that you're even putting out there.
Right.
That's like a great example of that. When you were building this course, how did you know how to price it? After putting all this effort in.
That was probably the hardest thing. And I think that at the time, I really didn't know how to price it. So I asked my community. I was like, would you guys pay this much, or this much for my course?
So good.
And I remember being like, I don't want to price it. It's kind of like a little bit like real estate, where it's like you can price a house however $1 million you want to price it, but someone might not see the value in that. They might not want to pay for that. At the end of the day, the buyer is who's going to kind of allow yourself or evaluate what they find is worth it or not. And so I pushed it out to my audience, and I remember it was almost unanimous because I was early on. I remember being like, okay, should I price it lower ticket, maybe $100? Should I price it, you know, a little bit higher ticket, $500? Like, let me know what you guys are willing and wanting to pay. And I think just allowing myself to ask the question rather than be like, I'm going to price it this price. And, you know, this is what's going to, like, I'm kind of like stuck on that price. I think that really helped because it was an immediate conversion because it was their idea, you know?
Yeah, they were bought
into it. At the end of the day, they were like, well, I asked for that price and she gave it to me, so great. You know? And
so if anything, they think they're getting a discount because they thought maybe, oh, you would go with the $500
for sure. Exactly.
Like.
It was all their idea, you know? And they felt like, oh, okay, she listened. Like, she listened to me and she put it out there for the price that I'm comfortable paying. And that's amazing. And, you know, over time, I've obviously increased the price little by little. But again, it's only I'm increasing because I'm adding more and more and more. And the people who are in there, they're lifetime. Like I don't charge like a subscription in there. It's a one-time payment. So for me, I like to think about it as you're in here for life and you're trusting me and you're investing in yourself and you're investing in me. Trust me, I got you, is my mindset. Is like, I'm going to pour so much more into it as the years go on. So like early on members, the people who got in at that like $100 price range and like even my content course, that was like probably $150, $200. Now it's like closer to $500 or $550. And those early members, those are like the people who I talk to still to this day. And they're like, thank God, like I trusted you. Like, thank God I like actually bought in, you know?
You're continuing
that's the hardest part.
Deliver value.
Yeah, and it'll shock you about how many times people need to see your course show up or see you talk about something to actually buy in, you know? Like, I think that's like something that I obviously want to talk about too is a lot of people think that you release a course, you brand it, and you release it, and it's going to be a huge, massive success. And that's not the case, you know? Just because it doesn't take off right away or, you know, immediately have that like ROI that you thought it was going to doesn't mean that it's not working. It just means that your people haven't found you yet, you know, or that you haven't, or your people haven't championed you enough yet. Because for me, the biggest growth factor that I had was once I had people in the course, I had like basically a built-in community of people championing the course and being like, I'm in this course and you should be too, and you should be too. And like, you know, telling their family and their friends and their audiences about it. So I think that was
the ripple effect.
The ripple effect.
Yeah. It's
and that
super important.
Really helped.
I also love that you asked your audience about pricing specifically because I feel like, and tell me if you've gotten this as well, I feel like creators are so worried to talk to their audience.
They are. It's weird.
Yeah, it's like there's a lot of fear around what I put out, how I speak to them, and I feel like when you drop all of that and you just come with like an authentic conversation, they'll tell you what they want.
For sure. And I think that a lot of it too, as an expert, you may be thinking, well, I have to be the expert, you know, so I have to set the tone and I have to do this and I have to do that. But I think that there is such a luxury in being like, I'm an expert in my knowledge, but like I'm not an expert in everything that my community is thinking and feeling and wanting.
Yeah, totally.
You know, so it's like there's no reason to not lean in more and ask your audience. And it's not gonna. It's the best look, if anything. You know,
Totally.
And again, it really does make them feel like they've built it with you, they've asked for it, and it's like a no brainer at that point.
Yeah,
you know,
I agree. I feel like the best creators are the ones who survey their audience regularly, who get feedback from their audience, and then it like results. I genuinely believe this, that it results in the type of audience that once they take your course, they are willing to go out and advocate and talk about it.
Could not agree more.
It's like a full, like, it's a cycle. It feeds itself.
100%. And this is also like has to do with everything. It has to do with content. It has to do with any business idea that you have. Like letting your audience in. I think a lot of people are so stuck on the like something's coming launch strategy where they're not going to show anything until it's like perfect final product. And it's like, no, that's not, I don't care what's coming. Like show me what's coming, you know, like drag it out, drip out some assets, get me excited, get me involved, you know? And so like when you think about it, it's that something's coming launch strategy that I think people are so hung up on that they want it to be like such a surprise element, but we should retire it. Like it should be retired completely.
Totally.
You know, it's like let your audience pick your brand colors, let them pick a font, let them pick the price of your course, let them pick what the next features are going to be, what the next modules are going to be, what story ideas that you like. Whatever it is, let them pick it so that they feel at the end of the day like they built it and produced it with you. And then there's no reason that they're not going to actually click the checkout button and convert, you know?
Yeah.
You're giving them no reason. You're like, they're like, okay, you know, you want it built out this certain way? Amazing. Have it all for you. Like it's just an easy.
It can be so simple.
It can be so simple. We just kind of complicate things.
100%. I think to wrap us up with this segment, I'd love to hear your thoughts on like what you believe, and maybe you've touched on it, maybe we haven't talked about it yet, but what you believe is the biggest social media myth that creators need to drop.
Oh wow, this is an interesting one.
Might be talking to their audience, might be, like I said, something we've discussed before, but I'm just curious from your perspective.
Yeah, I think that probably one of the bigger myths is that there's so many. Let me think about the one that I want to like. I think that probably one that will resonate with people is that if you are showing up and, you know, you're creating and it's not working, I think it's really easy to kind of like blame the algorithm and not necessarily look within yourself. And so, you know, there are so many myths out there that hashtags are going to blow up your reach. Like that's a myth. And I wish people could stop doing that. You know, like hashtags are doing nothing for your reach. They're not showing you to any more people than you're already going to be shown to. They might help categorize you, but not in such an impactful way. So that's a big myth I think a lot of people hear. I also think a lot of people say that you should be posting and ghosting and just like post your content and then leave the app so that it generates more activity so that it eventually makes you come back to the app. This is like the craziest
never
thing.
heard that.
Oh my God. I hear it all the time.
Interesting.
People are like,
Doesn't
okay,
even make sense.
it makes, exactly. A lot of these things make no sense. Like a lot of the social media myths make no sense. A lot of people think that posting a link in their stories is going to make their stories bomb and flop and not do as well. People think that posting one story a day is what's going to help them grow because their views are up. There's so many myths.
Interesting.
Like it kills me.
It sounds like I need to take your course.
yeah, basically. But I think that I guess a myth is that just because something is not working for you, like going back to what I was saying, like just because something's not working for you, it really doesn't mean that it's the algorithm's fault. It might just mean that, you really do need to look within yourself and also give yourself time. Like a big myth is that you can have overnight success or overnight growth. And I bet you if you looked at anyone who has overnight growth, they've been working on it for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years.
Yeah.
Nothing is overnight.
Yeah.
It really
no
isn't.
such thing as an overnight success.
Exactly. And the things that are overnight, it's trends and it's, here and then it goes.
Yeah.
So I think that's a big one is there's no such thing as overnight growth.
Yeah.
It just doesn't exist.
Totally. Nothing like a 10-year overnight success.
Exactly. Exactly. Literally.
So let's circle back to the revenue pie chart. So you're talking about how you've done $1 million in your digital products, which is absolutely insane, in a very short amount of time, less than a year.
Yeah.
And then you have, I'm sure, brand deals. You have your app that you built. You have your content calendar. Like what percentage of all those things make up your revenue?
Yeah. So brand deals are a very, very small percentage. So I want to start with small because I think a lot of people think, creators and influencers make a majority or should make a majority of their money from a brand deal. And I think that is exactly the opposite of how I feel and how I operate. Like brand deals are great and all, but it's the last thing on my mind, truly. So I'd say brand deals maybe 5%.
Okay.
I'd say Kajabi and my digital courses are the biggest percent, probably nearing 65%. Wow. And I would say my core or my other products, my workhorse products, so my app and my planner, make up about probably 20. What percentage are we at now?
20 to 30%.
20 to 30%,
yeah.
right. But Kajabi definitely takes the cake. I probably would say about 70%, to be honest. Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah. And it's my longest term one. Obviously, like my other products are newer, but there is nothing that comes even close.
I'm surprised to hear you say that you don't focus so much on brand deals because you come from the influencer space where that is like predominantly where people did you just know that going in?
No, that's exactly why I don't. Actually.
Interesting.
That's exactly why I don't.
Why?
If
Tell
there's
me
like
more.
one takeaway I wish I could give people is that they should not put all their eggs into the brand deal basket. It's so fleeting. It's so short term. And also when you start to get so many brand deals and you're doing 2 to 3 brand deals a week and you're talking about this skincare brand and this lifestyle brand and this skincare brand and this beauty brand and this hair brand, it starts to feel fake.
Yeah.
Intrinsically fake.
Yeah.
We know that you're not using 17 different skincare brands. Like we know you're not wearing 17 different workout brands. It gets to be the point where like you have your audience trust and it's a very, very precious thing. And so when you start to convolute your brand with other brands and other brand deals, it starts to slowly drain yourself of that trust. Exactly.
Yeah, totally.
And I think that was a big thing. That was like probably the biggest mistake I saw people make in the influencer and creator space is that, they took on every brand deal because the numbers are amazing.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, it's hard not to, it's hard to say no, but I say no much more than I say yes.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm very, very, very selective.
And you went into this business with that mindset.
100%. I have a list and I talk about this too in my content creator course. I have a list of my dream brand deals. You guys were on one. Yeah. I was
Dreams
like,
come true.
Yeah, dreams come true. But I was like, I have a list of the ones that I would talk about all day, all night, and I stand behind. And then the rest, I'm not interested.
Yeah,
I'm really not. Like, I'm not going to sell myself out for a brand that's going to pay me a lot of money that I don't actually like mold with or mesh with or my values don't align with.
Yeah.
So I think that's a big thing is that, and my audience knows that too. Like if I'm speaking of a brand or if I'm speaking of, a creator or a name of someone, they know that they can trust it. I don't ever want to abandon that or lose that or abuse that,
That's amazing.
Yeah.
All right, Julia, on Creator Commerce, we like to do a thing called the thing that. It's a little more rapid fire, and it's going to be obvious once I start going through them, but I'm really excited to hear your answers. Are you ready?
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay. The thing that went way more viral than you expected.
Oh, my hook strategy.
Oh, what's that?
So I talk about subliminal hooks. So not necessarily a verbal hook, but someone putting on lip gloss while they're talking, or someone doing something like swirling an iced coffee. It was a visual hook. And before me, no one had talked about it, or if they had, it really didn't go viral.
Whoa.
And I got reached out to by the New York Post or the New York Times, LA Times, Bustle. It went that viral.
Whoa.
Like it was like
Do you do that in every video?
I talk about, no, I don't overly use it because then people will just catch on a little bit.
Yeah.
But like something like this is a visual hook, you
Your
know?
glasses?
Like, yeah.
Yeah.
Like I do like to throw in a little something because I think that people are sensory people and not just a verbal hook is enough at this point. So I like to, maybe click a pen or it's
Whoa, that's some psychology.
It's a full psychology.
Oh, yeah.
Full psychology.
And your glasses got me.
Exactly.
Because I told you that I found your content before I knew you were on Kajabi.
No, that's right. It's full psychology. The psychology behind it is insane.
Wow.
And so I love going into the psychology of it.
I said this was rapid fire. Now all I want to do is know.
You're like asking 3 follow-up questions.
No, sorry. That was good. That was a good one. Okay, the thing that you created that makes you smile every time someone brings it up.
Oh, this one's hard because I feel like all of my businesses are my babies, but probably my social media management course.
Okay.
Yeah,
I love it. The thing that you wish more people knew about the business side of social media marketing. You're like, just take my course.
Yeah, I'm like literally just take my course. God, there's so many, but just spending the money, to do influencer events or ads is not necessarily where you need to be spending your time and your money. An ad and influencer events aren't necessarily end all be all. And I think a lot of people think that, or even like getting influencers involved, you can do it yourself.
Yeah,
so
totally. Good one. The thing that totally changed how you show up online.
The thought that, if I really wanted more, then I had to kind of show up as more. And so I think just being motivated by helping others and being there and being a safe space for others, and the thought that I could be someone's comfort creator, honestly.
Yeah, totally. And I think that goes back to the grit stuff that we talked about earlier.
For sure.
You have to have
full
that fire.
circle.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. The thing that reminded you of why you started this in the first place.
Oh my God. I mean, I still view myself as the social media manager 7 years ago. Like I still feel like that identity of mine and that persona is someone that I carry. So I think that is who I reference in my brain.
Yeah, that's good. The thing that you thought would never happen but did.
Oh my God. Creating an app, honestly.
Really?
Yeah. Creating an app, it's insane.
Yeah. You said you would have loved to have that when you were a social media manager.
For sure. It would have been the best. And also it just takes so much to get an app out there and produce an app that I think when you're really in it, you're like, wow, I'm really doing this.
Yeah. That's great. The thing that changed your relationship with burnout.
Oh, I've had a lot of burnout experiences and, clients calling me, blowing up my phone on Christmas and holidays and messaging me at 3 a.m. saying that it's wrong that I'm sleeping. So I definitely have, some horror stories and a lot of them, probably more than I'd like to admit. But for me, my relationship changed with burnout once I realized it's not healthy and it's not helping me grow by creating from a place of desperation and exhaustion and, lack of abundance and scarcity, which is basically where you're at when you're burnt out,
Totally.
You feel like you have to instead of feeling like you get to.
Yeah.
So
yeah, exactly. Okay, last one for us is the thing that is up next for you.
Oh my God, there's so much. I mean, I have a huge build out coming to the course and I have probably 10 more modules dropping next year. And I have a brand new revamp of the social media management course because I haven't touched that since I created it. Wow. So that is definitely up next. And, when I picture myself in 5 years, I'm hoping to eventually have an empire in this space, and really have the people who have been there with me from the beginning should be able to show and almost be my advertisements, like my walking advertisements of like how much they've grown, and how much they've also achieved from my business and what I've been able to create. So that's hopefully where I'm at.
You're only just getting started.
I'm very much getting started.
Yeah. And look how far you've come already.
I know. I feel like it's crazy that I can say like I'm scratching the surface, you know? Like it is crazy for me to feel like I've been coming up from air and I'm just scratched the surface on my businesses and, within Kajabi. And I think that that's a crazy thing to say, hearing that I've made basically $1 million in the span that I've made it. Yeah. So I think that should give people hope.
Well, we're so excited to continue to watch you grow.
It's exciting. Thank you.
All right, so to conclude our conversation, this has been so amazing, so insightful. I love your journey. I mean, I found you on Instagram before I knew you were on Kajabi, and I was like, this girl knows what she's talking about, and all of our social media needs to look like hers. So I'm such a big fan, and it was so exciting to hear the evolution of your digital products. I would love for you, the way we end Creator Commerce is for you to give us a creator assignment for anyone who's been watching, whether it's the next couple of days or the next week. What is one thing that you want them to do in order to continue moving in their business?
I want you guys to pinpoint your creator currency. So what that looks like and what that means is to really figure out what you have to bring to the table, what your source of value is. And if you don't know, ask. Ask your audience. Ask what they would want to hear you yap about. Ask what they would want to hear more about. Lean into asking, like we talked about, and really figure out, what you're going to bring to the table that is different from what is out there, because everybody is unique in their own sense. So there is no one that I could look at who's watching this right now who doesn't have their own unique flair or specific kind of currency or value that they can bring to the table. So that's typically what is going to make you the most money. It's going to make you lit up inside. That energy is going to just radiate through the screen, and it's going to make you able to silently sell, ultimately.
Love that. Well, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Of course. And here's to the next year or 10 years of success with your business.
Thank you.
One of the challenges creators and experts face is knowing what to share for free and knowing what to charge for. Julia offered really practical advice and an approach that I think works. She extends the idea of content pillars into how she segments her free and paid content. It's a simple framework that helps her deliver value at every stage before someone becomes a customer and long after. I think it's a powerful reminder that structure can actually create more freedom, making it easier to serve your audience while building a profitable business. Thank you to my guest, Julia Broom, but most importantly, thank you for joining us. Don't forget to click subscribe and hit the bell for notifications so you don't miss episodes when they drop. See you next time.